Welcome back to Sales Insights with Sarah. This is the podcast for sales professionals and business leaders looking to implement new strategies and drive sales growth in their organisations. I'm your host, Sarah Downs, and my guests and I will be sharing with you some of our own experiences in business and sales insights to help you gain focus and take action. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sales Insights with Sarah podcast. So today's episode is really come from recent conversations that I've had with salespeople and company owners, where they're asking me the question, when should I give up? When do you know it's the right time to give up on following, a prospect and pulling something through your funnel? So before I jump into the answer to that, what I wanted to highlight first of all, and this really comes from my experience of now working with hundreds of salespeople in different types and sizes of businesses, and also being a salesperson myself for the last decade. But I wanted to share with you the 5, top things that I think makes most salespeople give up on a prospect or following a particular lead. So the first one, I think, is that they thought it would be easier than it was. You hear salespeople in sales meetings saying things like, it's in the bag, or I'm 100% sure this is going to land this week. And I think it often comes down to impatience and maybe the fact that they fail to realise that sales can take time. It does need patience, and it also requires action. And sitting and waiting is never enough. So that's probably the first one. The second one is I've met a lot of salespeople that I felt have lost the belief in themselves. Their confidence has been knocked. And obviously in sales, we have to overcome objections from customers and prospects on a very regular basis. And that knocks people down if they don't have the right tools and the right, personality and mindset to deal with that. That can really take its toll on people. And it can start, knocking the confidence, and they can start not only losing their belief in themselves, but also forget the purpose of why they're doing this and their why as well. And it's quite sad to see this, but it's something that I do come across on a regular basis. The third thing is that some people are just not willing to change their approach. So I meet many salespeople that are still what I call feature bashing. They're talking about every single detail about a particular service or product in the first conversations, instead of, having an approach of a more consultative sell or value-based selling approach. So some people are just not willing to change the approach. So when something that they're doing isn't working, they'll just give up. Where actually there could absolutely still be an opportunity there. The fourth thing I come across is motivation. Salespeople that don't actually feel motivated enough to go for it, to go after it. And some of that motivation needs to come from them personally, and some of it often needs to come from, the sales culture that they're working in and the leadership style and approach. But often when, especially salespeople I've worked with that have come through industry downturns, they've gone through maybe consultation periods or redundancies themselves, or they've just had a really bad quarter, they can struggle to feel motivated and get themselves motivated enough. And that can often make them give up on following up a lead. And last but not least is coming across salespeople that are not willing to take personal responsibility. And I think sometimes this can be quite subconscious and they don't actually even realise that they're doing it. But often when you ask people why they've stopped following up on something, or even why they've lost something, it's never their fault. They're going to blame the sales culture in their organisation, potentially a colleague, the product itself. the industry, maybe especially if there's a downturn, or like at the moment where we've got a global pandemic and lockdowns to contend with. They can blame the competition. They can even sometimes blame things like it was the weekend or the kids are on holidays, nothing's moving right now. But it's never their fault. They're not looking inward to look at, well, what could I do differently? Do I need to change my approach? Could I have done something that could have given a different outcome here? So that's the 5 things that I feel like I come across that makes people give up, maybe prematurely on following something up. And for some salespeople that I've worked with, this is a daily thing. It's constantly giving up on following up with leads and prospects. And also if they've got that lack of confidence and they don't feel motivated, that can actually stop people going after things in the first place, let alone giving up. It's almost giving up before they've started. So if you're a salesperson listening to this episode, and it's something I've done myself in the past, I think you really need to take those points into account and think, well, am I motivated? Do I take personal responsibility? Am I realistic about how long this sales cycle should be? Or am I almost jumping the gun a little bit here? And am I willing to change my approach? If I am taking personal responsibility and I feel like something isn't working, am I looking to change my approach, or am I just giving up? So I think that they're really important questions to ask yourself. And if you're a sales manager or a sales leader, these are questions that you can ask about your team, but also about yourself as a leader, because if you're not motivated, or if you're not taking personal responsibility, or if you're unrealistic about a sales cycle, the chances are your team aren't going to be either. So this is definitely something that you can work on. But let's go back to that initial question that I keep getting asked, when should you give up? So I guess it's, what is giving up? Is giving up, not bombarding the prospect and phoning them and emailing them every day or every week? I think if you recognize that that's not the right approach, then stopping that doesn't necessarily mean that you've given up. I think for me personally, even though I could change things in the pipeline to, for example, stuck or they've gone dormant, for me, it's not giving up on them. I think if you can continue to add value, to share your knowledge, to show the credibility of yourself and your business, to be accessible, and that's something that right now, while many of us are in lockdown, that I don't feel businesses are being accessible enough. I phoned a number of businesses and had no response at all. And because people are so busy online, they're losing track of potential messages and leads that are coming into them as well. So be accessible is really important. And also just to continue to ask really powerful questions along the way. And I don't necessarily mean that they have to be direct, but certainly within your content where you're, showing that value or adding value and sharing your knowledge. And I do believe that if you can make sure that you are, acting on these consistently, that the qualified prospects will come forward, they will come through. And I think often when we try to open a door into a new business or a new prospect and it closes in our face, quite often we've just tried to push on that door a little bit too early. Every buyer has to go through a journey, from awareness to consideration to decision that we've spoken about in other episodes. And, we know that a huge percentage of buyers do not want to speak to us directly during their consideration phase. And if you're trying to push through that door too early, it will close. But it doesn't mean that as they then go into consideration and their decision-making phase of their journey, that they are not going to come back. So when we speak about giving up, it could be changing their status in the CRM or in the pipeline. But I think if you to truly give up, you really need to stop adding value, stop sharing your knowledge, stop showing your credibility, stop being accessible, and stop asking questions. And if you're a salesperson or a business that is doing that, you're going to go out of business pretty quickly. So I think if we can continue doing those things, we don't have to be hammering our prospects on the phones or on the emails to get results for the business. And if you don't know when your prospects, are on that buying journey, and therefore you don't know when to contact them, just remember that if you have had a door close on your face, it's maybe just the wrong time. It doesn't mean that it's a no forever. It's just a no right now. And they are absolutely the people that we need to put our effort into, and we need to continuously add value. But also, doing your research, and I know I've spoken about this on many episodes, but doing your research and making sure that those that you are going after, those that you're directly reaching out to, that you are very clear on their challenges and you're very clear on what solution that you have for those, so that when you do make a direct content, that you're going into that with a very consultative approach and you're ready to sell value, not feature bash. And you may be thinking right now, well, how do I do all of these things without picking up the phone to them every day? Then you need to look at social selling strategies and similar style techniques, ways that we can stay in touch without bombarding and without wasting your customers' time or your own time for that matter. And be consistent, whatever strategy you choose to follow that's right for your business. And depending on what you're selling, depending on the size of your team, depending on which industry you're in, will obviously change which approach is right for you. But whatever you choose to go with, make sure that you're consistent, because if you're not consistent, you can't measure what's working and what's not working. And measuring is so important for us to learn and to adapt as businesses, and to change up our sales processes and our sales strategies accordingly. So hopefully that helps if you're sitting there with that same question on, when should I give up? Maybe you feel like you are hitting your head up against a brick wall in sales right now. And that's okay, but go back to the start of this episode and ask yourself some of those questions and see what you can change. And don't ever think that stopping the phone calls or the direct emails is giving up, as long as you're consistent with other sales strategies. So hopefully that helps. And if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And if anyone has any other topics they'd like me to cover, please also let me know. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Sales Insights with Sarah podcast. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you are notified of every new episode. If you could take a few minutes to leave a review, it would be greatly appreciated. See you next time.